was the first to animate old folk tales like Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Snow White, or even Aladdin with his magical lamp, who had animals flocking to their heroine's side in times of need. You may be thinking Disney, but this pioneer of animation laid the founding tracks that Disney's train later ran along. She's the woman with the oldest surviving feature-length animated film and created her own type of silhouette animation. And yet, who has ever heard of Lotte Reiniger? Her feature film, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, has an early animated Aladdin and a scene of magicians fighting, which seems to have inspired some of the work in Disney's Sword in the Stone. Her film took 3 years to complete, using a subdivision of cut-out stop-motion animation and a rostrum camera. Nothing like her beautiful and charming work will ever be seen again. Her style, using intricate cutouts with fixed rigs, just isn't economical or malleable enough to make a comeback. The art of animation has flourished in the same era as feminism, and this is some of the story of how they grew up with one another. Lotte's work is a good place to start, as she started making her films just as the West was waking up to the idea that there would be no democracy worthy of its name until women had the vote. It's been argued that Lotte subverted some of the stories she used with a feminist slant. She changed Carmen from a tragic figure destroyed by her own selfish carnal desires to a cool street rat who manipulates people to get what she wants using her feminine charm. In the 1930s, Carmen succeeded in a man-orientated world, and that was pretty progressive. But most of Lotte's animations were faithful to the standard issue of sexism of the time, and derived from folktales of the Brothers Grimm. Female characters were cooked up from a very limited set of basic ingredients. Young ones were beautiful or ugly, sweet-natured or jealous, and older ones were spiteful and bitter, or nurturing and maternal. Cinderella is still pitted against her sisters, fighting over who gets the guy, and when Disney did his own feature-length version, little changed. Early Disney movies come neatly packaged in the spirit of their times for anyone who cares to analyse them with a feminist eye. The female characters generally only exist in terms of their relevance to the desires of male characters. A lot of feminist criticism involves comparing Disney women as role models, which sort of misses the point. Being feminine is not anti-feminist. Snow White was stuck alone in a forest, but managed to find a life for herself by being herself and by being kind, and Disney gave girls someone to look up to instead of just endless male icons, which would have been very easily arranged. Disney studios have always sought to represent the spirit of their time and constantly update their heroines' branding. They've never sought to blaze a trail, always staying behind the cutting edge. But movies like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast look to keep step with more modern ideas about the role of women. Beauty and the Beast was the first movie to actually point out that beauty isn't everything. It was the first time the prince and princess get to know each other before they fell in love. It wasn't perfect, since there was still this idea of, she's better than other girls, look, she reads, and they're obsessed with men. Interestingly, throughout the years in Disney, men have been arguably as bland as their princesses, sometimes more so. They all look the same. It could be said that Gaston represented them, and perhaps, in a way, his death was the death of the idealized cookie-cutter men in Disney animations. The Beast was the first time they had a blue-eyed blonde prince, where dark hair and dark eyes had been the standard, and he was complex instead of just the dream man.
Did you honestly think she'd want you when she had someone like me?
As animation and feminism stepped together into the modern age, the 90s were a great time for both, which is why we're moving on to Sailor Moon by Naoko Takeuchi, who wrote the manga, which the anime series was based on. Her comic got popular so quickly that when the anime was being produced, it quickly ran out of material and went off on random plots while it waited for the manga to update. It was a series about a typical clumsy high school girl who's the chosen one and has to save the day by becoming Sailor Moon. Without taking away her femininity, she kicks butt, gets a boyfriend, and struggles with her grades while becoming more and more confident as Sailor Moon. Her companions help to represent a range of women as well, from tomboys to the artistic to the athletic and even lesbians, though they didn't make the cut in the English dub. It was too progressive for its time, but it left a lasting impact on our culture, and it got a lot more people into anime. Its style and ideals were copied by shows like the Powerpuff Girls, who took the idea of big eyes to its nutty extreme, and Totally Spies, who took on that anime style but westernized it. Sailor Moon showed the industry that there was a big audience ready for girls to be heroes.
Get out of here now! What?
Another hit from Japan was Hayao Miyazaki with Spirited Away at the start of the millennia, the most successful film in Japanese history. Miyazaki made it for 10-year-olds, claiming that he didn't believe that crushes and romances were what they held dear in their hearts, and wanted his female hero to draw out something that was already inside of them. Chihiro was the result, compassionate and uninterested in payment, while everyone else falls due to their greed. She saves a number of people by being generous and ambitious, and you see her grow, but she remains a child, and she doesn't end up with anyone. She just wins the right to go home. Another refreshing thing about this movie is that it's a hand-drawn animation during a time when computer-based animation was the big upcoming movement that some claim is the second wave of animation. Hand-drawn has almost been completely abandoned by Disney because it's time-consuming and time is money. But traditional animation gifts the filmmaker with a lot more creative freedom, which he really doesn't put to waste. Miyazaki has inspired other animators, among them Pendleton Ward, creator of Adventure Time.
Adventure time! Come on, grab your friends. We'll go to very distant lands. We'll take the dog and then the human. The fun will never end. It's Adventure Time.
Who's a big fan of My Neighbor Totoro. He first created Adventure Time in 2007, making it all almost by himself as a 7-minute short.
Oh my gosh!
It was a long and shaky road before he could finally make it into a series, but when it finally got out there, it was a big hit, with 2 to 3 million views per episode in 2013.
Whoa, that's amazing!
And a wide demographic. It has a mix of many themes and inspirations, from indie to Mad Max. But somehow, it's a really great and sometimes quite deep show. The main characters, Finn the human and Jake the dog, are both male, but they're surrounded by a variety of women. Princess Bubblegum, pink and feminine and a genius, though despite playing the damsel in distress, she never dates Finn, and often her invention or knowledge saves the day. Marceline the Vampire Queen, a rock and roll chick who really doesn't need protecting, despite the typical vampire weaknesses. She's in a league of her own with her troubled, thousands of years old past, yet she's still full of mischief. And Lumpy Space Princess, who deals with self-consciousness and her parents as a typical tween. It's on a network where you just tune in, watch what's on. So plot is limited to a single episode rather than a season, so it's rare to see a long-term hook narrative like Sailor Moon has, or our next example, Miraculous Ladybug by Thomas S. Strook, an animated series based on a girl with the power of luck and creation, while her partner, Chat Noir, has the power of misfortune and destruction. While it's for kids and some of the episodes are repetitive, it does have an overlaying sense of plot, and as one observer put it, the characters are so charming that the tropey aspects of the show are merely a lot of fun rather than irritating. Originally, they were going to do it in 2D, but they were worried there was no market for it, and they also had a problem with the effects Ladybug's black and red costume had on viewers. CGI fixed it, and allowed for more realistic fight scenes. Astruc wanted a French heroine with flair, and based her look on the style of a woman he saw with a ladybug on her shirt. The cartoon has caught the eye of a wide demographic, with even 20-year-olds watching. Astruc used to work on Witch, a show that's very obviously inspired by Sailor Moon, and so he knows a fair bit about the female hero. Ladybug is similar to Sailor Moon in that she's fairly clumsy as a person, but then very effective as a hero. But Ladybug's confidence grows not just as a hero, but in her daily life. It's not perfect, since it still has that I'm better than her vibe with her rival Chloe, though this could change. The show isn't over yet, there's still a lot it could do, and maybe Marvel will see it and bring in some more feminine heroes. And maybe Chloe and Ladybug will learn to work together and support each other. Women get a tough rep. Wherever you look, there are subtle and not so subtle ways that women and their interests are denigrated. It's important to tell people that there's no right way to be a woman. The whole point of feminism is that we have the ability to choose what we'd like to be. So to those trying to compare Disney princesses, to those girls who think they're better because they're more interested in work, and to girls who are embarrassed to like pink, stop that. Be as brilliant and pink as Princess Bubblegum. Be as into guys as Sailor Moon. Be whatever you want to be, whatever your adventure calls for. And if you want your society to thrive and prosper, empower the feminine, whether it's real or animated.